Hello. Well, the Commander color identity debate continues to rage on. It's honestly surprising how divided the community seems to be regarding this issue. When Wizards of the Coast broached the subject of Planeswalkers becoming Commander, that got soundly rejected by the Commander community at large. But carving out an exception for hybrid mana in the color identity rules of Commander, that seems to be a more even split, which makes it feel like a foregone conclusion that this change will be more of a when will it happen and not if. I've already spoken at length about this topic, and so you can check out that video for more information. Suffice it to say, I hope that WotC gets enough pushback that they leave the color identity rules alone. One of the arguments I hear in favor of the change is, well, think of how many more options it'll give to players. They could run all of the red or white hybrid cards in a general Ferris Rockeric deck. Hybrid does make cards easier to cast. I'm fine if WotC wants to add more hybrid cards to make limited formats better. Not every decision has to be made with Commander in mind and what works best in that format. Most of the draft uncommons they would make for limited probably wouldn't make the cut for most Commander decks anyways, so that's not really an issue. And if a rules change happens and a pushed hybrid rare becomes a staple for 2 colors as opposed to 1, then that would be twice as bad as if it were monocolored. And people say, well, what about the One Ring? That's a colorless option that can go any deck, and it's really pushed. So, yeah, WotC can already print busted colorless cards that can go in 100% of decks, and that is worse than a hybrid staple going in 40% of decks. But just because one happens doesn't mean we need to encourage the other one to happen as well. Everyone's out here arguing for a larger card pool, but I'm here trying to reduce the available card pool wherever I can. And that's not by banning cards or anything like that. These are just self-imposed restrictions. Like when WotC expanded the Game Changers list to like 60 plus cards, I was like, okay, this is getting a little unwieldy here. We need to rein this back in. And so when they removed cards off and got it back down to a more manageable 50 or so cards, I was like, okay, well, good. We're going in the right direction. People are saying they want more options. That's why they want hybrid mana to change. But I'm like, you want more options. There are 27,000 unique Magic the Gathering cards. For some history, for the first 23 years of the game, Wizards of the Coast produced about 500 to 750 unique Magic cards per year. This is not counting reprints, but just new unique Magic cards, about 500 to 750 a year. And then starting with 2016, that number shot up to 1,000 new cards per year. And in the last 5 years, an average of 2,000 new cards per year. We're getting 4 times as many new cards per year in the last 5 years. It's crazy. And people want access to off-color hybrid mana cards to give them more options. It doesn't make any sense. I'm just looking for more self-imposed deck building restrictions. Even if WotC changes the rules for color identity, I'm still not going to run any off-color hybrid cards in my deck. It just feels wrong. One of my concerns is that WotC will start putting off-color hybrid cards in precons in an effort to destigmatize the practice of running off-color hybrids in your decks. They already have talked about how they wanted to make Sephiroth in the Cloud Commander deck use Rakdos or Orzhov hybrid mana to show that Sephiroth was still black aligned. But they couldn't, because if they gave him a Orzhov or a Rakdos hybrid mana symbol, he would not be able to be printed in the Naya Final Fantasy VII deck. I worry that as Universe Beyond continues and they make more Commander decks, they're going to want to be able to fudge the hybrid mana rules so that they can put more off-color characters into precons without having to justify, well, why is Sephiroth not black-aligned in this one instance? If you just make every character, 5-color Commander, that's kind of boring as well. And not every character is going to fit all 5 colors. And so it's just this argument about how do you make a deck for a Universe Beyond set where you can put all the characters you want in a deck. It's just, I see why they're frustrated by the constraints of color identity in Commander. It's like, well, we can't play all the characters because not every character has a color through line. Like maybe the Commander is Naya colors, but you've got a character on their team and their party who's just straight blue, and they have no affiliation with any other colors as far as it goes. And so that blue character you cannot put in your Naya deck unless you fudge the rules and put a hybrid mana symbol, like if you would make them, hybrid Izzet or something. And so I see where the frustration comes from a design perspective as far as Universe Beyond products and having these characters with established lore and trying to make that fit into the Magic the Gathering framework. Much like with the errata for Rampaging Baloth and the Giant's Primate, I feel like these changes are being made to make WotC's lives easier, and it's coming at the expense of, in the case of the errata, it's coming at the expense of long-established cards that are being changed for no real good reason. It's nerfing the cards, and in the same way I feel that a change to the color identity of Commander would be nerfing the format, in a sense. People say, well, it's going to give people more options, but I think it will be, in the long run, hurting a lot of what made Commander special, what made it popular in the first place, and it was that exclusivity of building around a legendary creature. And of course now you can build around legendary vehicles or spacecraft as well. So that, in another sense, is, I feel like we're straying away a little bit, because you're building around a sentient thinking, general, right? And so now it's, well, no, now you're building around a specific ship, and there is no commander that is a person. But in the way they get around it is, well, you can animate it, and then the ship becomes alive, or what have you. The ship can attack, and so it feels like we're getting there, but I don't know, it just feels weird, because you're still having to crew the ship or station the spacecraft, and so it doesn't feel the same as having a legendary creature that is sort of the one in charge, and everything's built around them and their color identity. And that's what changing Hybrid Mana would do. It would cheapen that color identity by saying, it's like, well, they'll play it. It doesn't matter if it's off-color, hybrid, they could still use it. And it is a divisive topic. Some people are for it, some people are against it. I worry that I won't be able to buy Commander Precons in the future without seeing off-color hybrid cards in them if this change goes through. I like collecting some of the Precons to play out of the box, but I'm not going to if they have off-color hybrid cards, because it feels wrong. And I'm speaking this as somebody who already doesn't run off-color fetch lands in my decks. I don't run Urborg in non-black Commander decks, even though there's nothing in the current Commander rules which would prevent me from doing so. I also don't run cards with Extort in non-Orzhov decks, or Orzhov Plus. The fact that Firebending is featured on multiple non-red cards is hilarious to me, and it really makes me wonder if we aren't going to revisit the reminder text doesn't determine color identity. The ruling on Extort has been a frustration of mine for some time now. Like, reminder text not determining color identity, I feel like that was really meant for things like Charmed Pendant or Trinisphere. Charmed Pendant obviously isn't a Dimir card. It's citing blue and black as an example. Same thing with Trinisphere. It's not a black card. It's just citing a black mana symbol as an example of how the card works. That's a far cry between that and having a specific color or combination of colors baked into an ability itself, like Firebending or Extort. I would say I'm not running any Firebending cards in non-red decks, but I just don't run any Universes Beyond cards in my Commander decks or cubes. Now, that's not to say I avoid Universes Beyond sets entirely. I have copies of the Final Fantasy Commander decks and the Warhammer 40k decks. Complete Commander decks are the best way to incorporate Universes Beyond, in my opinion. You have roughly 4 different 100-card decks in which to fit in all the characters, items, and settings you could want. I just treat the Universes Beyond Commander decks as self-contained products. It's like a different game, which just so happens to have the same mechanics as Magic. I won't modify the decks with cards from other sets, just keep the precons as they are, out of the box. Modifying a Universes Beyond precon to me feels as unnatural as adding Universes Beyond cards to my decks. When the Warhammer 40k decks came out, I bought a few singles to add to my Commander decks, and then when it began to dawn on me the rapid pace of new Universes Beyond releases, I removed them all from my decks. Universes Beyond cards are this new quasi-reserve list that WotC has made. There's nothing to stop them from reprinting the cards, even if it's only digital versions on Arena, like with Spider-Man. It's possible for WotC to make in-universe versions of any Universes Beyond card, and should they decide to do that, I might consider adding those in-universe versions to my decks. For example, I really wanted to add Sandman, the Shifting Scoundrel, to my Gitrog Ravenous Ride deck, but I'm not going to do it because I just don't run Universes Beyond. That's a line in the sand I just needed to draw. If the Scouring Storm Soul were to get a physical printing, I would consider picking one up, maybe, even if the awkward villain creature type just feels off. Like, how were villains not retroactively batched in with outlaws? Because you have assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are outlaws, but not villains? It's like, if they would have declared villains as outlaws, then they would have had backwards compatibility and felt more like a part of Magic. but instead Villains just feels like a vestigial element of Marvel. So why don't I run Universe Beyond? It's partially for the same reason I don't run any reserve list cards in my decks. I don't want to build a new deck down the line only to realize that the perfect card for it is prohibitively expensive because of how difficult/impossible it is to get a reprint. And so if you open yourself up to adding Universe Beyond cards to your decks, then you need to keep up with each new release, which is what WotC wants. You can say, well, sure, I don't have a place for these cards now, but they're Universe Beyond cards. Who knows when or if they'll get a reprint? I'd better buy these Universes Beyond cards now while the price is at an all-time low, and then just sit on them. I don't want to build a new Commander deck years later only to realize that some of the Universes Beyond cards from a few years back would have been a perfect fit for the deck, but have since ballooned in price because they're so difficult to reprint. And so you might ask, well, how is the Reserve List or Universes Beyond cards different from any expensive staple? Some cards are expensive, like the Great Henge, Smothering Tithe, Teferi's Protection, Rhystic Study. The difference is it's easier for WotC to reprint expensive staples. I wanted an Urza Saga, but I didn't want to buy it at the high singles price. So I just waited until I got a reprint and a Secret Lair drop. If a Universe Beyond card is expensive like the One Ring, well, what do? Wait and hope it gets a reprint? Will the One Ring get a reprint in the Hobbit bonus sheet? Probably. A year after it was printed in the Warhammer 40k decks, Gearson Starn Kellermorph was a $5 card. Fast forward a couple years later, and it's a $35 card. Can we expect a reprint of this in a future Commander deck, a bonus sheet, or a Secret Lair drop? The future's uncertain. Will it be an in-universe through the Omen Paths reskin, or are we going to have to wait for another crossover with Warhammer? With high-value in-universe cards, WotC has several options for cashing in on reprint equity. The same can't be said for Universe Beyond. With all that said, this makes most Universe Beyond products solid speculation prospects, since they're more likely than not to go up without a reprint. And even if the card gets an in-universe reprint, like how Raise the Palisades got a non-universe printing, there's still no clear outline or timeline for any of these reprints. And even if the card does get a reprint, the Universe Beyond art makes it an aesthetic reserve list, since that art won't be reused. Hence why Secret Lair versions of cheap cards are often the most expensive versions, because that's an exclusive art treatment that's not going to be used anywhere else. So yeah, I won't run off-color hybrid or off-color fetch lands. I won't run off-color abilities like Extort, even though it's just reminder text. I won't run Universes Beyond or reserve list cards. I used to run Wheel of Fortune in every red deck I built. I ended up cutting them, though. I just couldn't justify the price, even though they only cost me about $20 each when I bought them 15 years ago. They're not that price anymore. So if you exclude unique Universe Beyond designs, that eliminates about 2,000 cards. So that takes the total number of unique Magic cards down from 27k to 25k. Removing the reserve list eliminates another 572 cards. If you factor in cards that are banned in Commander but not on the reserve list, that adds another 60 or so cards. And then not running Game Changers removes another 50 or so cards. So now we're down to around 24,300 cards. I'm still on the fence about Game Changers. On the one hand, I have enough copies of Rhystic Study and Teferi's Protection to run them in all the decks I play with those colors. I don't want to run unlimited Game Changers because Bracket 4 just feels like the Wild West to me. I'm mainly looking to avoid fast mana and excessive levels of free interaction. So all my decks I try to keep in a high Bracket 3 territory, even if I don't run any Game Changers. I could add them back in, but it's been liberating to cut them in favor of cards which are less powerful individually, but have greater synergy within the deck as a whole. Of course, when it comes to things like Mystical Tutor, that's a Game Changer which has great synergy in my Kaikar deck. I could run that, Rhystic Study, and Teferi's Protection and meet the 3 Game Changer cap, and it would make the deck more powerful. Of course, another option, a compromise, would be to just run the Mystical Tutor, since it helps me search up Polymorph. Mystical Tutor can also be imprinted on Isochron Scepter, which the deck also runs. Or I also would like to add the new Field of the Dead I got, and possibly Crop Rotation to my Gitrog Ravenous Ride deck. I'm still not sure why I fall on Game Changers. If you don't run them, you never have to worry about getting burned when they get banned. Game Changers offer you one layer of separation. If you avoid them, you avoid the cards most likely to eat a ban in the coming months. Most Game Changers will never be banned, though. We just had 10 more cards come off in the recent update. So running Game Changer becomes its own minigame. You're playing with power and just banking on WotC not actually banning the Game Changers. You can avoid the uncertainty by treating a spot on the Game Changers list to be as good as a ban. I also draw the line at free spells designed for Commander. That's a bridge too far for me. It feels like too much of an auto-include. Even if Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship, or Deadly Rollick were printed in every Commander deck, and price wasn't a factor, I still wouldn't want to run them. I view these as a design mistake which never should have been made. Well, so what about Arcane Signet? Gavin has admitted that that was a design mistake. So do I run that? Well, yes, you caught me. I do run some design mistakes. I also run Sol Ring, though there's a percentage of players who don't run Sol Ring in their decks. Others think it should be banned from the format. I don't really think that's feasible since they print it in every Commander deck, and it would be kind of awkward to have one card be banned that's in 100% of sealed Commander precons. I think we're just too far along to consider banning Sol Ring and having that be feasible, even though it doesn't make logical sense when you factor in the other game changers. People think Sol Ring should be banned, and I can see their point, especially when you consider how much stronger it is in isolation compared to most cards on the game changer list. But that's about as far as I go. Some people may go further than me. I know people who play Commander, but they don't like how WotC designs every set with Commander in mind. They like the old days 15 years ago when Commander was a novel outlier, just a blip on WotC's radar, as opposed to their main design focus. Some people want to ignore Commander design cards completely. They only play with cards which were printed into standard legal sets. Nothing from Modern Horizons, no original cards designed for Commander decks. And for some people, even that isn't going far enough. The pre-modern format has been growing in popularity. I could see someone building a Commander deck consisting of cards from the first 10 years of Magic cards. I'm all for self-imposed restrictions, but even I find that to be too limiting. I'm personally nostalgic for the pre-Commander EDH, since that's when I started playing, back before WotC printed the first Commander decks back in 2010. The silver lining of Universes Beyond taking up a majority of set releases next year means that I can focus on the 3 in-universe Magic sets, which more closely mirrors the release schedule of new Magic sets when I first started playing the game back in 2002. If WotC were releasing 7 in-universe sets next year, then I would feel compelled to scan each of them for new possible includes. Another benefit of Universe Beyond reprinting cards is that those are often less expensive than the in-universe versions. The Iron Man version of Commander's Plate is the cheapest version of that card. The Sonic version of Fabricate is the cheapest version, which, I don't know why, Fabricate depicts the Weatherlight on it, so clearly that's an in-universe Magic card, right? If aesthetics don't matter, then Universe Beyond reprints offer great opportunities for cheap single cards. I did a whole video about that when Final Fantasy came out. The fact of the matter is, Commander is supposed to be a non-rotating format. Also, how do you sell cards to players who don't have to keep buying new cards for their decks? The answer is power creep. I'm honestly relieved that WotC has been scaling back the release of new Commander decks. Spider-Man didn't have any. Avatar: The Last Airbender didn't have any. It's just nice to have some breathing room. But, what about you? Are there any self-imposed restrictions you add to your deck building? Let me know in the comments below what you do. I would really love to hear how your restrictions breed creativity in your deck building. And be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be back with more videos later. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.